In our last episode, we saw how the religious landscape of the 7th century Arabia was not a blank slate waiting for a new revelation. It was already populated with gods, hundreds of them. And the head of the Meccan pantheon stood a god they called Al-Ilah, the god. Contracted, Allah. This wasn't a new name, it was an old one, repurposed in the crucible of Christological controversy. But this raises a much larger question. If the pre-Islamic gods of Arabia were not unique, but part of a global pattern, then what connects them? What connects the gods of Mecca to the gods of, say, Mexico, Zeus of Olympus, the orishas of Cuba? What animates them all? Tonight, we follow the thread back to its source. And here's where we uncover the foundation. Today, we delve into the realm of entities, how they have operated and interacted with humans since ancient times, and how they remain at work in our modern world, often hiding in plain sight behind cultural masks and religious names. By looking at early Mesopotamian writings, we find remarkable parallels that confirm pagan religious practices were well established in this region before the Babel dispersion. The most significant evidence comes from the Atrahasis epic, an Akkadian text dating to around the 18th century BC, which contains a version of the creation and flood story. What's striking is that this text describes a time when the gods were in ways of men and presents a pantheon of deities, Anu the sky god, Enlil the wind god, and Enki the water god, who created humans to do their labor. The gods are depicted with very human characteristics. They grow tired, they rebel against each other, and they make decisions based on self-interest. Enki, specifically, is associated with wisdom and magic. This represents a fully developed polytheistic system with magical elements woven throughout, and it predates the dispersion of nations at Babel. This should not surprise us. The book of 1st Enoch, quoted by the Apostle Jude, fills in the background. When the fallen angels, led by figures like Semjaza and Azazel, descended upon Mount Hermon and took wives, human wives, they began to reveal mysteries to their wives and children, teaching humanity forbidden knowledge that corrupted both the earth and its inhabitants. Azazel specifically taught men to make swords, knives, shields, and breastplates, the arts of war. More significantly, he showed them the metals of the earth and how to work gold, fashioning ornaments, and introduced the use of antimony and eyeshadow, which led to godlessness, fornication, and corruption. Most critically, for our investigation, these fallen angels also taught the art of making bracelets and ornaments, the use of paint, the beautifying of the eyebrows, and the most precious and choice stones of every kind, along with all kinds of colored dyes. This directly enabled the creation of decorated images and figurines that could become objects of veneration. The text explicitly states the revealed sorcery and magic, along with the cutting of roots and the study of plants for occult applications. When these spirits were later cast out of heaven and roamed the earth as demons, as Enoch records them begging, "Cast us not into a place without light, but grant us a dwelling upon earth." They already had a template for how to receive worship. Humanity had been taught to craft beautiful objects, and these wandering spirits could now indwell those images, receiving offerings made to them, and perpetuate the very sorcery they had first introduced. This creates a direct pipeline for the pre-Diluvian world of Enoch to the post-Babel pagan systems, where, as Psalm 106:37 records, behind every carved idol lurks what Paul would later call the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. Now, let us trace this pattern as it spread across the nations after Babel. We start our case study with a culture so permeated by the worship of gods that they can hardly be counted. India is filled with gods and goddesses, human gods, animal gods, and combinations of each, along with temples, altars, and sacrifices. So entrenched in the culture was this worship that it received the attention of the church. According to church tradition, the Apostle Thomas took the gospel from Israel to India. The land, the churches, and the believers of India are thus marked by the name of the apostle, with specific places here marking where he was to this day. Thomas came to minister in the area we know today as Tamil Nadu and the city of Chennai, the same place where he was murdered by a Hindu priest. In Hindu mythology, Shiva is called the father of the Rakshasas. These are depicted as demonic beings with supernatural powers, shapeshifting, superhuman strength, and extreme malevolence. In Hinduism, the possession of human bodies is called avesa, possession by spiritual entities. These Hindu gods possess their devotees, and this is sometimes considered a form of yoga, becoming one with God. It is part of Hinduism to recognize certain human beings as living avatars, hallowed religious leaders, teachers, masters, and gurus, each seen as a living incarnation of a particular Hindu god or goddess. This is key to understanding that in these Eastern religions, these gods are not benevolent deities to be respected as part of a culture. The apostles knew what happened to Thomas. They knew about these gods of India. And the Apostle Paul warned us about them explicitly. The sacrifices of pagans are offered to demons, not to God. And I do not want you to be participants with demons. 1 Corinthians 10:20. The Hebrew scriptures identify these gods as the Shadim. In the Greek New Testament, they are the daimonia, from which we get our word demon. Now consider the pattern repeating across the globe. In West Africa, it's a diaspora including Cuba, Haiti, Brazil. We find the orishas of Yoruba tradition. Yemaya, Ogun, Shango. Each has distinct personality, domain, and demands. They receive animal sacrifice, possession occurs in ceremonies, and their worship adapts to new lands under new names like Santeria. In ancient Greece, Zeus ruled Olympus alongside Hera, Athena, Apollo, gods with human flaws, demanding worship and interacting with mortals through oracles and omens. In Mesopotamia, Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, and Tezcatlipoca, the smoking mirror, received human sacrifice atop towering pyramids. In Norse lands, Odin hung from Yggdrasil, seeking wisdom. Thor wielded his hammer, and Frida taught the magic of Theater. The names change, the masks differ, but the pattern is identical. Spirits demanding worship, receiving sacrifice, possessing devotees, and ruling over territories. Paul's words echo across every continent. They are demons, not mythology, not cultural archetypes, real entities. Some call it mythology. If we're talking about them as benevolent deities, yes, that is myth. Mythology is inert, but the principalities are present, active, and moving. Their power is real, and most importantly, they are dangerous, not meant to be interacted with, and certainly not meant to be worshipped. This brings us to a sobering realization. Many of these cultures around the world are under real curses. That is, they exist under a spiritual power, a spell, if you will, that the people who live there are subjected to, and they continue to feed these entities with reverence, worship, and praise. Just as the enemy in the Bible is stated to crave being like the Most High. But as powerful as these spells can be, they are no match for the power of God. For those of us with eyes opened and the Spirit of God within us, we have authority to exorcise these evil spirits out of people, out of communities, and out of entire nations. Not of our own power, but of the power of Jesus Christ, who is seated on his throne. The entire cosmos and all that is in it must respond when he speaks. That includes the demonic realm. And Jesus gave us the power to use it for his greater good, to do his work on earth. If you have never surrendered your life to Jesus, you remain vulnerable to these powers. You have no covering, no authority, no protection. But the moment you call on his name, everything changes. You are adopted into his family, sealed with his Spirit, and given the same authority he operates with. We have created a gospel message presentation that explains why you need Jesus to be saved, how you can do it, and how you can have the power he promises so you can have authority over evil spirits, no matter what name they bear or who they possess. The link is in the video description below. The gods of the nations are not dead. They never were. They simply changed their clothes, updated their names, and adapted to new cultures. But the Bible gives us the lens to see through the disguises. From Babel to your city today, the pattern holds. And knowing the enemy's strategy is the first step to standing against it. Join us next time as we keep uncovering the foundation.